All right. The spinning wheel has stopped spinning, and I think I'm live now. What's up, y'all? Thanks for coming in. It's time for another signal response. This will be number 7, and in this one, I'll be responding to the audience who were gracious enough to watch our show, Bill, Will, and I, the Virtue Signal, who have responded to the episode we did on envy. And like I said, just a quick recap. We're covering, as we examine virtue, and it seems that everybody, kind of has their own idea of what virtue is, and we are free to do that. But the problem is when you have so many people with a different idea of what virtue is, we're going to end up with some conflicts, because somebody's so-called virtue is going to intrude on somebody else's idea of virtue. So there needs to be a standard, y'all. There has to be a standard, a fixed idea of what virtue is. And people, even with that, they have different ideas of what that fixed standard will be. And one of those is the classics of the 7 deadly sins, and the contrast with their virtues, right? So when we go through those, one of those that we came to was envy, right? The sin of envy, and the virtue and the virtuous flip side to that being generosity, right? Now, envy itself, y'all. When I look at envy, and like I said, I'm not endorsing the 7 deadly sins or 7 cardinal sins and their virtuous counterparts as something that I subscribe to. They seem to be biblically based. It's a part of a catechism, if you will, but it's not something that I subscribe to in terms of how I base my ideas of virtue. My ideas of virtue are biblically, period. There's no religion involved in it. In order to have this virtue, or know these virtues, and to be familiar with what sin is and how to avoid it, it takes knowing Jesus himself. That is what it takes to have a fixed and solid standard of virtue. He is the eternal foundation of virtue, period. So that's what I go by. But I do understand that there are people who subscribe to a catechism of learning these sins and their counterpart virtues, so to speak. So envy, and it's hard for me to think about envy without about that song, Jessie Girl by Rick Springfield. Man, I got that song in my head right now, right? And so yeah, that song would be a good example. Not only envy, y'all, but just straight up covetousness. And there is I think there is kind of a difference between envy and covetousness. Envy, and that's when you really get down to it, because that's the main thing. Notice that in the commandments don't say thou shalt not envy. The commandments say thou shalt not covet, and there's indeed a difference. I see Catherine popped in. Thanks for joining, buddy. The difference with covetousness and envy is that covetousness is just straight up raw, and covetousness is going to be pursuant to what it is. It starts off as covetous. Well, it starts with pride, one, and it continues on from there. Envy, on the other hand, envy is one of those things that could turn into something else. For example, when you covet something, it's like you feel like you deserve that. You see it, you feel like you deserve it, you want it, and then from there, that's what you pursue, right? And this things, and a person can do, nefarious things, when they go down this road unchecked. Envy, on the other hand, you can see the same thing and you can even desire it. However, at some point, that hater complex comes into it, and then that's where the sour grapes takes over. You can actually envy something and then start to convince yourself that you didn't want it in the first place. You see what I'm saying? So envy can take on a whole different direction. Covetousness doesn't do that, right? Like, say for instance, with Democrats, how they feel entitled to people's stuff. And they make laws that make it legal for the state to dig into somebody else's pocket and take what they have against the Constitution. That's an institution of covetousness, right? That's covetousness made policy. Whereas envy, you ain't gonna hear, you're not gonna hear too many Democrats who put in these laws and Democrat voters say, well, I didn't want that anyway. No, yes, they do. They will always feel entitled to what you have. They always feel entitled to this justice. If you're making this amount of money, they think that they're entitled to a percentage of it, right? And that's why these taxes keep on going up. They never go sour grapes about it. They never say, I never wanted it anyway. They don't do that, right? They will always be covetous, and they will always pursue what you want, right? I mean, always pursue what they want, and what they want is what you got. That's just who they are, right? So envy, like I said, can take a sour grapes direction where it's like you could just straight up become a hater and convince yourself that you don't want what somebody else has. So I'm just responding, y'all, with some audience feedback. You know, this is my way of kind of engaging our viewers, which we're thankful who tune into our show. And let me see. Somebody asked about one of the viewers asked about his name is C. Albert, right? And he asked, and his comment is, after listening to your show today, I'd like to hear your thoughts, both of you, on the idiom for each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. Got the program. Okay. You know what? The thing is, one would be surprised that, speaking for myself, a capitalist, y'all, would be more in favor of this principle. Bear with me. I know some people are having their heads just exploded for me to say that a capitalist might be more in favor of this principle than any collectivist, whether you're a socialist, whether you're a communist. And the reason why is this, y'all. From each, let me see, from each according to his how does that go? From each according to his ability, to each according to his need. If it is voluntary, right? If you have this communal effort, if it is voluntary, people should be free to do with their resources what they want to do. If you want to be able to have this community where you're doing that and it's not state policy to do it, you should totally be free to do it, right? That's what capitalism affords to people, right? To take your God-given rights and your God-given right to property and distribute your resources how you see fit, rather than the state coming in and taking your resources and redistributing them while they're putting most of it in their pocket under the guise of good intentions to say that, oh, we're making sure that everybody has free health care and everybody has free education and everybody and all this free stuff that they claim to be giving, right? That this money just comes from nowhere when they're really stealing from the people. That's all they're doing. And they're acting like they're the good guys who are giving it back and say, look what we gave to you. It's BS, right? And people are been suckered by this for God knows how long, right? So people keep falling for this. But in terms of to each according to their need, from each according to their ability, yeah, man, if it's, there would be more of that if we were free to do it, but we're not free to do it. It's like it breaks my heart, man, when if I'm going to go to the store, man, and somebody, may need some spare change or anything like that, or it's like, and for me, when they ask for some change, I'm like, is that the only kind of change that you really want? Do you want like just some change from my pocket, or do you want a real life change? You know what I'm saying? Spend some time with him, say, hey, man, what is it that you really want? I don't want to see you begging from man, dude. I don't want you to do that. The only person worth begging from is Jesus himself. You don't get down on your knees and beg from him, but don't beg from no man. You know what I'm saying? Not because of pride or anything like that. I'm not talking about being too proud to beg. I'm talking about if you're going to exercise real humility, take it to the high priest and king, Jesus himself. But don't take your begging to another person. Like I said, it's not about being too proud to beg, man. It's just about having the real humility to take it to God. So, and I'm like, and the Lord says, I've freely given to you, and I expect you to freely give, right? But we're not free to give, y'all. Before we can even give to people, the state's already in our pocket, taking what we've earned, right? You ever look at your paycheck and you look at your gross pay and you be like, oh, that's nice, right? And then you look at your net pay and then you're like, oh, your face get all sour because you just saw what the state took from you. But a lot of people, they're so used to it now, they're sensitized, they don't even question it. They're just used to getting the net pay that the state allows them to have against our constitutional rights, violating our right to property, right? So when you talk about envy, y'all, that's part of why that is. This covetousness, this envy of people saying that it's not fair that somebody gets to earn this much, I deserve a percentage of it. And then they vote in these politicians who are happy to go in for their power to go in and make it policy that people get to dig into our pockets even more, right? Making it harder and harder for people to make ends meet. That's what we end up with. So envy, y'all, is a horrible thing to institutionalize. But like I said, envy is doesn't really get down to the heart of it. It's covetous that does that, And some people will ask me, like, say, for instance, because this stuff that I talk about, the liberal elite, they can't stand me. That's why they came after me so bad, and affected my livelihood, where I can't reach my audience anymore. The overlords of the media then came after me, so I can hardly promote. But people will ask me, like, if I'm envious of, like, these other people with platforms who are getting viral views and stuff like that, the way that I used to get back in the day. And am I envious of that? Or some people will even accuse me, so you're just envious. And let me say, for the record, no, not at all, man. I don't envy these people. I don't covet what they have. I don't want to dishonor my Lord, with violating the commandment to not covet. I don't do that. But the thing that when I address these things, y'all, I don't address these things out of just some frivolous butthurt. I address them because people ask. Like, even today, and Annie, I'm going to answer your question right now. She says, "Hi, Zoe, we miss you on Facebook. Where you been, my friend?" Hey, I appreciate that you guys miss me. And that's one of the reasons why I address these things, because people ask. It's like, dude, where have you been? I haven't seen your work. I haven't seen your work in years. Right? It's like, what happened with that movie that you were? It's like, some people be like, man, I just heard you were in this movie, right? Yeah, so yeah, I was. It's a lot of my audience didn't even know. And it was like the #1 movie of 2018, right? They didn't know that. #1 seller independent movie on Amazon, #1 independent theatrical release, right? In 2018. People didn't even know, right, that I was in the movie. So a principal cast. So, a lot of people don't know these things. So that's why I address these, because people ask. And so it's like, because and it's almost like the shadow banning doesn't bother me as much as people. Because I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people think that I just quit. It's like, no, I didn't quit. I didn't stop making videos. I didn't stop making content. My content was stopped from being seen. That's what it is, right? Or when people think that I haven't been doing this, it's like, well, Zoe, how come you're not doing this? And Zoe, how come you're not doing that? It's like, man, I have done that. It's like, I wish people could understand that. It's like, this is not that simple. When you get shadow banned, y'all, when you get your content, when they target you for content suppression, it's like a disease that there's no cure for. It doesn't. It's almost like when you get the hiccups and everybody's got an idea of how you can cure it, and none of that stuff works. And it's like they're telling it to you as if you haven't tried it, right? It's like, dude, you should do this, or you should do that, and you should try this. Like, look, I've done all that. None of that works, because this is a condition where it's like there's no cure for it, and it doesn't matter where you go. They got your number. Like, people will say, well, how come you're not on Gabai? It's like, I've been on Gabai for years. Right? But you don't know that, because my content is suppressed. You can't see me. You can't find me in the search engines, right? You start typing in my name, you have to know my name completely before it'll come up in a search engine, right? Usually when you type in somebody's name, the cross references will start coming up, and you'll be included in the cross reference, even if you misspell their name. My name, if you don't know my name, you're not going to find me. Unless you've already heard, that's why my work can't be discovered anymore, right? If you don't know my name, I'm not discoverable. If you do know my name, you got to type it in totally correctly, right? And if it does come up, it's only because you've typed in my name before and it already has it on record, right? So these things like that, y'all, those are the things when people like tell me that I should be doing this and tell me I should be doing that. It's like, look, man, I've done that. Okay, folks don't seem to understand this. When you get shadow banned, it's a whole different ball game, and there's basically nothing you can do once they got your number. Only thing you can just do is just keep on trying, right? That's all you can do, is just keep creating and not quit. Because like I said, man, I'm very thankful for this God-given country. The Lord blessed us to be able to tell the truth. Right? We're supposed to have the freedom to tell the truth here, right? That's the gospel. If this nation, and right now y'all are seeing it, where Christianity is becoming more and more marginalized, you get deplatformed. Basically, this is a cyber book burning. You understand? We're being silenced. And y'all, if the word of God is not free to be preached anymore, we're in seriously deep doo-doo, right? You talk about going back to the dark ages, right? You don't want none of that. You don't want none of that. And they're doing it right now, right? The word of God, it's, you don't want that kind of prejudice to be able to be free to reign against the gospel, because once that happens, man, it's gonna be murder in the streets again, right? Like, and this ain't gonna be just no inner city murders and drive-bys and stuff like that. Where all these Democrats run. When they talk about police brutality and when they're talking about gun violence and all that sort of stuff, this is all the areas that the Democrats run while trying to make everybody else feel guilty. But when they get their way and the word of God is suppressed, how they're closing up the churches, and they've decided that weed dispensaries are essential businesses, but churches, if you go to church, you can get a citation or taken to jail, right? That's what's going on right now. When the word of God is no longer free to be preached anymore, y'all, we in big trouble. So that's where, when I look at stuff like that, in terms of other people being free to do what they're doing, no, I don't envy these people at all. Here's the thing, y'all. If there's any sort of dismay that I have about other people being allowed, to say what they're saying, because y'all, they have to have an alibi, right? Like, some people ask, well, how come this person, their content isn't being suppressed, but yours are? Well, because they have to have an alibi. They have to be able to say, well, your claims of your work being suppressed is not founded because obviously this person over here, they're getting viral views, but your content isn't. So you're just being a crybaby, right? So that's why they do things like that. But y'all, when you have, like, say for instance, on my page, if my subscribers on YouTube have been 70,000. Right, for about 5 years, right? I think about 5 years. It doesn't grow. They don't allow it to grow anymore. Remember, like Facebook, over 100,000. It's been like that for about 5 years, right? They don't let it grow. And despite my page followers on Facebook and despite my subscribers on YouTube, I only reach 1% of my audience. 1%. That's ridiculous, right? That's content suppression, of course. It's discrimination. It's harassment. So they totally harassed and decimated my brand. So, but do I envy other people because their views are viral and stuff like that, and their channels are allowed to grow? No, not at all. The only thing that kind of bothers me is that, hey, I mean, people that I've worked with, some of these people have been colleagues of mine, right? In certain publications. The fact that they're able to go forward and reach the stature that they have, like with millions of channel views and millions of viral views, no, that doesn't bother me at all. The thing that bothers me is that they're allowed to reach their audience. I'm not. That's the thing that bugs me. It's like, I wouldn't care if somebody calling me because they're not watching my stream. Even if my subscribers were only, let's say I only had 1,000 subscribers, right? As long as I could reach them, if I have 1,000 subscribers, I'd like for 1,000 of my subscribers to be able to see my videos. That's what they subscribe for. They want to see my videos, right? But I've got over 70,000 and only 1%. So out of 70,000, I'm lucky if my videos get seen by 700 people. Out of 70,000+ subscribers, only 700 people see my videos. Right? It's like, so following that trajectory, by now I should have had over 500,000 subscribers, at least by now, right? Because I've been doing this longer than most of the people that people know. I've been doing this since some of these people were in middle school, right? I've been doing this longer than that. I'm one of the first people on YouTube to go viral and do it in this field, right? In this kind of commentary. I'm one of the first people. So because I became such a big threat, what it is that they were doing, they had to shut me down. So, and like I said, man, that stuff, the Lord already warned us about. The Lord said they hated me, they're gonna hate you too, right? I got it. But like I said, one of the reasons why I addressed this is because people ask, like I said, they're like, man, where you been? I thought you quit. And it's like, no, I didn't quit. That's the thing that bugs me, right? When people think that I quit, or they think that I didn't do this and I didn't do that. It's like, no, man, I've done all those things. Shadow banning is just something different. So, with that, the people getting their views. It's like, man, I'm glad that they can reach their audience. That's great. You know, like I said, even if I only had 1,000 subscribers, I just at least want to be able to reach them. But I only reach 1% of my audience, you know, and my audience is not allowed to grow, and that really sucks, you know. So at any rate, y'all, in terms of you know, we were talking about, if you want to see the full video of what we did of Bill and I discussing envy and generosity, and also like and just getting back to that, y'all, getting back to the contrast of generosity. It's just like I was saying earlier with you know, people making it an institution to have to give to other people. This system of envy, people wanting these laws put in because they feel like they're entitled to what other people have. They want to be able to flip hamburgers and make like what a person who has a skilled, you know, a learned trade makes, right? It's like, I want $15 an hour. It's like, dude, you know, this isn't, you know, don't get me wrong. It's not anything to say bad about it. Like, you need a job, get a job. You know, I don't care. I don't care what your job is. If you're gonna make an honest pay, I don't care if it's flipping burgers. That's not the issue. It's not the issue at all. And please, I do not mean to sound at all condescending or dismissive of somebody working in a fast food restaurant. However, I do have a problem with somebody doing an entry-level job and feeling that they're entitled to somebody who's actually learned a trade. That's where I have a problem, right? When a person feels like they're entitled to a family supporting wage off of an entry-level job. And we see that a lot. You see these people who are envious because a person is making this much money, and they think that because, you know, well, I have, you know, a wife or a girlfriend and we've got like 3 kids and you need to pay me according to that. That's backwards. That's asinine. It's like, no, I don't pay you according to how many people are in your family. I pay you according to what the market says about this service. You know what I'm saying? This is not a family supporting service. It is an individual supporting service, and it's not a career, right? Now, if you want to climb the corporate ladder of it and end up becoming a manager, and maybe at some point, you know, you save up enough money or get enough clout where you can take a loan where you can buy a franchise of it, then by all means, go ahead and do that. Sure. Right. And you can make a career out of that, of course. But to assume that, you know, you deserve to make like $15 or $16 an hour for flipping a burger, that's ridiculous. That's why these people are going to end up getting replaced by robots. They're going to screw them. They're going to slice up the goose that laid the golden eggs, and they're going to screw themselves out of a job. For a lot of people, right? Why? Because of envy, because of pride, because they think that they deserve more than what the market would pay for that. You know, that's why these cost of burgers and stuff are going up, because they want to keep increasing the minimum wage. People who have an entry-level skill think they're envious of other people who make more money, and they want to make that too. And then they wonder why the prices go up, and then they wonder why they can never afford anything. Well, wow, I just got a minimum wage increase. That's great, but why is everything else so expensive? I want another minimum wage increase. That's what envy does, right? That's what covetousness. Let me get down. Actually, let's get, like I said, get down to the nitty gritty of it. That's what covetousness does, right? When you feel like you're just entitled to all these things. And where generosity comes in, y'all, is that we're kept from being generous. Like I was saying earlier, man, I'd love to be more generous to people. It'd be great if the state wasn't taking so much, right? California is ridiculous, man. California just be going deep, right? Let me get deeper into them pockets. And, you know, and it affects your ability to be charitable. You can hardly be charitable is something that you're supposed to be free to do, not something that it's made law to do, right? That's no longer charity. You know, but we don't have a state like that anymore. Our nation is becoming less and less like that. And it affects our ability to be charitable. Now, charity, y'all, if we did have the freedom to be charitable, there would actually be less reason to have to be charitable, because more places would be able to afford to hire. There'd be more places that would afford to be able to give jobs, right? That's the place where you want to get to. There's always going to be, you know, the poor, and you're always going to have certain people who are going to pander to the poor. That's one of the reasons why we always have the poor, because of people who make a livelihood of pandering to them and using their plight to get more votes or more power. You know, it's just a vicious circle that we have. And it affects our ability to be generous, right? Where you have these Democrats, they claim to be, they're all generous and they're for the poor and they're for the working class and all that sort of stuff. No, they're not for these people. They're for using them, yes, right? And they make sure that they keep these people this way. They keep them that they're dependent on these people staying in a state of arrested development and not able to achieve their dreams, right? While they claim to be the party of the dreamers, it's like, no, they're not. they're making it harder for people to achieve their dreams, right? So it gets in the way of being generous, y'all. So at any rate, so I hope that made sense. I just want to do a quick, I always say that I want to do these quick, man, and then I end up like making them like, you know, I ramble on and they end up becoming like a half hour or something like that. I got to learn, man. But anyway, I am thankful that you guys have tuned in. And just really quick, yes, Mike, you're right, man. Michael Dominic, the shadow banning is real, right? It's a real thing, man. It's a real threat. And please understand what shadow banning is, y'all. You have people who talk about their content being suppressed. You'll see some people saying that, yes, my content. Meanwhile, they've got viral views and their audience knows. Oh, and or they'll say, you know, to stick it back to shadow banning and the content suppressors, we're going to have a fundraiser. When you're shadow banned, y'all, you can't have a fundraiser, right? It's not possible, because when you're really shadow banning, your audience doesn't know about it. Your audience just thinks that you disappeared, and then they don't, and out of sight, out of mind. They don't think about you anymore. Right? That's just how the strategy works. But when you're able to say, oh, our content is being suppressed and we're going to have a fundraiser, and you're able to raise like $50,000 in a couple of days just by saying that you were shadow banned, guess what? That's not shadow banning, right? Shadow banning doesn't work that way. Shadow banning is when your audience, basically all of your audience, 99% of my audience, y'all, 99%, I have 1% of my audience left, 1% that sees my content anymore, right? So when you're really shadow banned, you can't, your audience doesn't know about it. You just vanish off the map. You become a ghost, right? So these other folks who talk about being shadow banned and their content is being suppressed, you know, no, not when most of your audience knows about it, and then your audience is able to like have a fundraiser and you make a whole bunch of money off of saying that you're being shadow banned. That ain't shadow banning, right? So let me see, when they get just really quick, I heard someone, you know, I feel horrible, man, because I want to read these, man, but when I read them, it's like a lot of dead airspace, man, and I'm boring as it is, man, and if I be quiet, then it'll just be really boring, just like looking at me sitting here reading the comments and stuff like that. You know, it'd be really cool, man, is if these things could like read, if I could hear your voice or something like that. I think maybe Zoom does that or something like that, where I don't know. Yeah. And it could just like speak to me, because I'll be trying to like read them and stuff like that, and yeah, I get all off sidetracked and whatnot. That's me trying to be hospitable and stuff. I'll be me trying to be polite and engage with y'all, and I suck at that, man. But so with that, I'll just say, hey, I am glad that you guys showed up anyway to listen to my rambling as I give my response to those who are kind enough to watch Bill and I on the Virtue Signal. And the link to the show that we did is in the comments section or in the description field. So other than that, y'all, I'll be back again to do another episode of the Signal Response. All right, y'all. Blessings. See you later.